everyone, welcome to the Clueless Sports Dad Podcast, your go-to source for all things sports, minus the expertise. Get ready to embrace your inner cluelessness and join us on this wild sports journey. Let the cluelessness begin.
What's good, everyone? Eric, the Clueless Sports Dad. I'm here with Coach Dan, the king of offensive line from Trench Mafia. What's good, Coach Dan?
What's up, buddy?
All right, so we're going to get into the NFC North camping this week. We've got some hitters out there. Right now, we're going to start us off with the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm tabbed for them. So let's dive right onto this and see what's good with the Vikings. So as always, you guys know I like to start off by going over coaching, who's gone, who's new, that sort of thing. And then we dive into key additions from free agency and key subtractions, dive in a little bit on their draft picks, go over their schedule, give our takes on what it's going to look like as far as their record goes. And at the end, we'll go ahead and give our division picks. So make sure you guys stay tuned to the end of that. Also, make sure you guys smash that subscribe button, give us a like, leave us a comment, letting us know. Hit over to all the social media outlets out there, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or X as they call it now, and let us know what you guys all think. So, Dan, before we get started, you got anything you want to join in and say before we get it going with the Vikings?
I'm excited to get into this one.
Yeah, buddy. All right, so for me, I'm just going to break it down real quick and simple, what I thought about the Vikings. So they got some notable departures and signings that I think they brought in Frank Smith as assistant head coach. They elevated Josh McCown to offensive passing game coordinator while maintaining his responsibility still as quarterback coach. I don't know how well that's going to be still. One of their key departures was Mike Pettit. He retired from the position of assistant head coach, which was filled by Frank Smith. So as far as coaching staff goes, doesn't look like there was a whole lot there, which I don't know. I think they could have upgraded some areas, but we can talk about that here in a minute. As far as free agency goes, they got two guys. They got Juwan Jennings, the wide receiver, and of course, Kyler Murray, which we'll dive into that as well. The quarterback room in Vikings is absolute trash, in my opinion, but we'll get into that in a second. And their key subtractions were what me and you talked about in the draft, was replacing Harrison Smith, and we'll talk about that right after this. But their other key subtraction, who's with my Raiders, is Jalen Naylor, who I think will be a pretty good addition on that Raiders wide receiver core once they get dialed in over there. But now leading into the draft, we were talking about this, and they had probably one of the biggest busts, if not the biggest bust, in the entire first round of the draft. Picking 18th, they took defensive lineman Caleb Banks from Florida. And they did have two other picks before we started crushing them on that. They had two other picks that I actually really loved in the later rounds. Their third round pick, the defensive lineman Dominique Orange from Iowa State. I really liked him a lot. Are you familiar with him? Yeah. So I really liked him. As a third round pick, I thought that was pretty good. And then one of my guys from the University of Miami, who I thought was great in the playoffs in the third round as well. Their last pick, 98th pick, was safety Jacoby Thomas from Miami. So I thought those were the two that they actually hit on. The rest of the guys, to be seen, basically. To be determined, but nobody else really stood out to me. I'm not sure if you knew anybody else. They got the linebacker, how do you say that? Golday from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Okay. And they got a tackle, Caleb Tiernan from Northwestern. And they got a fullback in the 5th round, which was kind of crazy, from Michigan. Another corner later, running back, and a center later from Cincinnati as well. So before we continue on to their schedule, looking at who departed, let's first do this. Let's first dive into that draft and what you think about that pick and what they did the rest of the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the Caleb Banks pick. He's an inexperienced, injury-prone player. he's got all the upside in the world, but the best value is availability, and he hasn't had it. Now, I do like the picks of Jake Golday and Dominic Orange to their defense. I like the Juwan Jennings pickup. You know, he'll be a good number 3 for them. But at the end of the day, this team, it's all about that quarterback room. And I know we'll get into that more, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so the status, I haven't really seen anything at a training camp or anything on them, and I probably should have dove into that a little bit more. But do you know anything about Caleb Banks and his timetable? Is he going to be able to play soon? Is he healed up? Probably not this year, or
I haven't seen anything on him as far as the timeline. Like, I think they expect him to be back, but I'm just not sure when.
Yeah, I just thought there was so much you could have done on the back end. You could have replaced with the kid from Oregon. Was it the guy we picked? The safety from Oregon is what we were thinking that they were going to get. Yeah. We thought they were going to go after him since they got rid of, Smith. And I mean, if Caleb Banks plays to the potential of what they might think he could play to at all, then I could see it being a good pickup later on, but I don't know. I think it's still trash. I think they lost the first round by a mile. And I think Vikings fans are just going to continue to be dog water like they always are. I mean, that's just what it is. And now we're going to go ahead and talk about their quarterback room. It's a big mess.
Yeah. I mean, you 9, whatever he wants to call himself, looked terrible last year. You're talking about a guy who was propped up at a Michigan team who just handed the ball off. He wasn't asked to do a lot. And when asked to do it in the NFL, he crapped the bed. And then they bring in Kyler, who has flashed moments of brilliance because of his, I think, elite athleticism, but he's proven not to be the reliable student of the game. And now apparently there's friction between the two. Kyler's unhappy that he's splitting reps. JJ's mad that they brought in Kyler and he still thinks it's his team and his job. And like, McCown needs to sit down with these guys and let them know, like, even from a PR perspective, like, y'all are handling this bad and making us look bad. At the end of the day, Kyler's going to be the starter. And I think when you're throwing to Addison and Jefferson and now Jennings, I mean, that's about as good as a receiver room gets. But I think they do need to see some of JJ to see if there's anything there that's salvageable. In my opinion, there's not. Like, I think they just need to cut bait and move on. But he does you no good sitting on the bench. He's not gaining any value. You're not any closer to determining whether he is your franchise quarterback, because that's been the narrative is, we forced him into the role. So Kyler's coming in as more of a placeholder, which they should have just re-signed Sam Darnold and been done with it. But it's just a really messy situation for the team, for the PR, for the organization as a whole. It just looks dysfunctional, and it wasn't what I was expecting out of Kevin O'Connell. And it seemed that he's leading because he's a damn good head coach. But
I think, let me just stop you right there. I think the thing that the Vikings screwed themselves on is the last 2 seasons, you draft a quarterback 10th. You have no plan a succession plan in front of him. Like, for instance, my Raiders, they were going to draft Mendoza no matter what, pretty much. And they got Kirk Cousins. So they know that they're going to try to get Cousins. They're going to try to get the most out of Kirk Cousins, whether it's a year, whether it's 2 years, whether it's a few games, until Fernando is 100% ready. And I think for Raider fans, like, even if we have to wait a couple of years, fine, so be it. Our team is not ready yet, and they need to build up the team. We got a GM that knows how to build up the team finally. And this is where Vikings fans have to be pissed with the organization because of the simple fact they didn't have a competent GM the last couple seasons, because McConnell is getting just basically thrown underneath the bus and not getting any help from his office, the office above him. And so you draft a guy 10th overall 1 year to be the man. And one of our friends, I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to make sure he sees this. But one of our friends who's a big time diehard Viking fan told me that JJ's the next Patrick Mahomes. So
Yeah,
he might have been drinking that day, but
had to have been.
it's okay. He'll know when we send this to him. But to not have somebody in front of him is criminal to me. And secondly, this year with the Banks pick, that's even worse. And then they turned around and fired the GM right afterwards, who had no business.
The GM needed to go.
The
mistake that they made was Sam Darnold threw for 4,300 yards and 35 touchdowns. And to them, it was this decision of, is he our franchise quarterback, or are we just going to turn it over to JJ? I would have went to Darnold and said, look, we're going to make you a top 8 paid quarterback in the league, but it's going to be on a 3-year deal. And you stack all the money the first 2 years. And after that, if you want to cut him loose, cut him loose. And if JJ's ready earlier, then you have a really high paid backup, but whatever. I mean, JJ's on a rookie deal. Like the overall salary of your quarterback room still isn't outrageous, but they made it this one or the other when it should have been, how can we have these two coexist until JJ's ready? But they didn't. They cut Sam Darnold loose and he wins a Super Bowl, and they crap the bed because JJ looked terrible last year when it was, I think, all avoidable. But for whatever reason, their GM at the time didn't feel like that was an option, and that's why he's fired now.
Yeah, and I agree. He had no business being the GM at all.
No.
Like this whole thing is just, and I don't know how much the head coach had to say about who's getting drafted, the situation, who we're signing, who knows how much he actually is involved in that. But hopefully they can get that turned around. But not really, because I don't like the Vikings either way. So
there you go.
All right, man. So Dan, you're on next with the Bears. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, the Bears didn't have to do a lot offensively. They shipped out DJ Moore, which it's a loss. I think he's been a consummate professional. I think he's someone who's underrated, but they got great value for him. And then they signed Khalif Raymond, Scotty Miller, good little slot receivers. But this offense will run through Rome Odunze. And then I think Luther Burden really stepped in big last year. I mean, despite being a later round pick, you're talking about a guy who was a 5-star when he went to Missouri, incredibly talented player, and has thrived in the offense. Offensive line, they needed to replace their center. They got Garrett Bradbury from the Patriots, which is an elite pickup. They are counting on their second round pick from last year, Ozzie Trapillo, to be their left tackle. But they did have a sneaky signing of Jedrick Wills from the Browns, who signed one of the worst contracts in NFL history. It was like a $2 million deal with no guaranteed money. So, okay, you cut him, you lose nothing. But you're talking about a guy who was a former top 10 pick. And then defensively, I mean, they signed Devin Bush, who I'm a big fan of. After the 2 Raider linebackers, I thought he was the next best guy. And they got Kobe Bryant from the Seahawks for the back ends. And then they took Dylan Thieneman, who, we said we thought the Vikings should have taken. You're talking about a rangy, smart, instinctive, ball-hawking safety who hits like a truck. I mean, sounds familiar. The guy he's replacing, that was kind of his MO. And he's a better athlete than Harrison ever was. So I think they did a really good job solidifying the back end of that defense. They were one of the teams that was in the running to go get Max or Trey Hendrickson or Myles Garrett. They've been looking for a running mate for Montez Sweat for quite a while, but they do have guys that I think can get the job done. They have Austin Booker and Shamar Turner, who were both, draft picks in the last few years, who can get to the quarterback. I mean, it's not necessarily a hole, but you would like to have someone to take some pressure off of Montez. Now, when you look at this team, you have Ben Johnson, who I think is, a top 3 offensive mind in the NFL. He's the one who runs the show, both organizationally and this offense. And, we talked about it in our quarterback rankings video. I think Caleb Williams is the top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. And I don't care about his antics. I don't care about his fingernails. I don't care about what type of fluffy pink bag he's carrying. Don't matter. The dude is going to go out. He's going to ball out. He's going to throw tutties, and he's going to let you know that he's better than you. And I like that type of swagger out of my quarterback, because Caleb, despite everything else, I know guys that have been around him since high school, and they said he works. He's smart. He wants to be great. He puts in the work to be great, and it's showing up. And you put him with an elite mind like Ben Johnson, it's going to be a tough team to stop in the North. And honestly, I think when you look at what Ryan Poles has done with this roster, he's continued to fill holes and replace areas of weakness. This is a team to be reckoned with in the NFC for the foreseeable future. Now, I've said it before, I'll say it again, like the NFC runs through the Rams, but Matt Stafford is 38, Caleb Williams is 24. So there is a changing of the guard coming, and it's going to go through the Indiana Bears.
Yeah, that's crazy. So who's their GM with the Bears? Do you know?
Ryan Poles, former offensive lineman. That's why he's so good, because we're smarter than everyone.
So as much as I don't like the Bears. I don't hate the Bears as much as I hate the Vikings.
Fair.
But I just don't like Caleb Williams. But that's just my preference. I never really thought he was a great quarterback, even in college and stuff like that. For some reason, I've never been a fan of USC quarterbacks. It's like they get in the NFL and it's just like blah. They just whatever. But I want to. What's that?
Ain't blah no more.
Well, we'll see. I will say this though, their draft picks were pretty damn good. Like I look at all their draft picks and I'm like, holy cow! I recognize almost every guy on here.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I mean, you got the safety from Oregon, Dylan. You've got Logan Jones, the center from Iowa. Love that.
Dude.
Love that pick. Sam, is it Roush? Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah.
The tight end from Stanford.
Yep.
Great pick there to add depth to their tight end room. The wide receiver Thomas, Xavier Thomas, the wide receiver
ran 4.28 at the combine.
Yeah, insane. I love that. How did Malik Muhammad, the corner from Texas, fall to the fourth round? Like,
right.
I mean, did he not? I mean, he ran a 4.42. So I don't know why he fell, but like, I thought he was going to go higher. You had Elliott, the linebacker from Arizona State, another dude. And then the guy, I don't even recognize the guy from Georgia Tech, the tackle. But I mean, you look at those picks, it's like every guy is like, holy cow, these are all dudes. And even if they don't start the first year, they're going to make an impact somewhere on this roster, whether it's this year, special teams, in the future, who knows,
Yeah, I think this is a league of depth. And I think that's what people miss is you need to have capable twos, because at any moment someone goes down, like you need to have someone who can step in and contribute, and your Raiders have the best tight end room in the NFL. But I love this Bears tight end room. They have Colson Loveland, who was their first round pick last year out of Michigan.
Yeah.
They have, a number 2 tight end, just like your Raiders, who's a Notre Dame guy, Cole Kmet. And now they add Sam Roush. So you have Loveland's, who's more of your flex tight end, and Kmet is kind of a mixture of inline and flex, and then Roush is just a blocker. So even though you have 3 different guys and you have a pecking order to it, like it's plausible that you're like, hey, we're going to go 12 personnel with Kmet and Roush, and then we're going to split Loveland out. And it just gives you a lot of flexibility with how you're designing your offense, how you're running your offense. And I think that's smart. You don't want to have an entire room that's the same guy. And that's, I think, what Poles has identified is, look, Loveland can go be Travis Kelce, and Kmet's a guy who a little more Gronkish, where it's like, we want you inline blocking, but we also need you to be able to go catch a pass. And Sam Roush, shoot, you might have caught more balls last year than he did, but he is a massive human being who loves to bury people. He's just a glorified tackle. Great. If you want to have a physical run game, that's the way you can do it. And now it gives you some options. So I know everyone wants to dog tight ends, but being an offensive guy myself, like I love the versatility that tight ends can create. Particularly, you're a linebacker guy. When we come out in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, you're like, shit, our job just got a little bit harder.
Oh, yeah.
So now we're expecting a run, but maybe it's not, and now we're in a bad position versus just going, hey, we're going 5 wide, and it's like, okay, well, we're going quarters or deep thirds and just keep it underneath of us. But
yeah, when you have guys like that, when you're coming out in that personnel package and you got those 2 tight ends out there and you got Loveland out there, you're like, oh yeah, we gotta make sure he's guarded, and all of a sudden Kmet and Roush just sneak out from different angles. Like, I mean, there's so much you could do with the tight ends. Like, I mean, you can line them up in the back. You can line one up in the back like a fullback. All of a sudden, you motion them out. You find out what's going on, whether they're running zone or man, and next thing you know, you're getting carved up by the tight end that you were supposed to be guarding in the first place.
Right.
Loveland. So now it's like, it's like just causes that chaos. And like we were talking about in many of our podcasts before this, is like painting. We just say it like it always is, painting those pictures in a different light. I'm a huge tight end fan.
How many years did the Patriots kill people with 2 tight ends? And the only reason that stopped was because they actually decided to kill people. But I mean, you're talking about, one of the greatest offenses the NFL has seen the last 20 years had 2 tight ends. So I think they're so valuable. And from a roster construction standpoint, like, I'll pay $8 million for a tight end instead of 25 for a number 3 receiver.
Yeah. Especially if you got a guy like Brock Bowers or, a guy that's like those type of guys that can split out.
Right.
I mean, I've seen him line up way outside before and seen him line up in the slot, seen him on the line, seen him in the back and motioning around. Like, I mean, there's just so much you could do with a guy like that. Oh, but by the way, you forgot about Michael Mayer running over the middle or doing a curl over the middle or something to that effect, because people forget like how badass he was.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's great. But I think with the Bears, to me, it's to be seen what Caleb's going to do. Is Caleb going to be one of those guys that fall into these tiers like a Josh Allen, that can never get over the hump, can never, like, is he going to end up being one of those dudes that are that way, that just, or is he going to fall into, what is he on, year 2, 3?
Year 2.
Last year was year 2, right? Yeah. Okay. So he's going into year 3. So it's like, what does he need to show this year that he has? What does he need to prove this year that he hasn't in the past? And that's
they were good in the playoffs last year. I think for a lot of Bears fans, it's we need to make the NFC Championship game. And if the Rams beat us, then the Rams beat us. But I think that's probably the bar. Well, let's get there. Let's get close and get that experience, because I mean, they're not going to let Caleb leave, so.
No, I'm not saying from that aspect. I'm saying from an aspect of like, you start talking about these quarterbacks. You got Trevor Lawrence.
Josh Allen
is
in.
Yeah.
So I think for Caleb, it's just about performing in the big moments, whether it's to clinch a division, whether it's on the road at Lambeau, whether it's in the playoffs. How is he performing? I don't want to say like, oh, they have to make the Super Bowl. He's only in year 3, and the Rams just got Myles Garrett, and now Aaron Donald's talking about coming back. Like, I don't know what you can do against that, but I just want to see him play well, and I think that's kind of your barometer of progress, because we know he's going to put up good numbers. That's just the way the system is developed. But I think it's for him getting comfortable without DJ Moore, because I think he was kind of a safety blanket. Seeing Caleb get Rome Odunze more involved as their number 1. But I honestly don't feel like he really has to show me anything else to believe like he's different than those guys that can't get over the hump, because like I said, I know the way he prepares and the competitiveness and the way that Ben Johnson's running this team, the way Ryan Poles has constructed it. Like I'm not worried about shortcomings.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, it's got to be like some of the games I looked at last year. I'm looking at them right now, and some of them were very, very close. I mean, you lose. I think it's the beginning of the year. Beginning of last year, they lost on Monday Night Football by 3 to the Vikings. Then you get throttled by the Lions, and then you beat the Cowboys handily. You almost lose to my Raiders. You win by 1 point. You win by 1 point the next week to the Commanders. You barely beat the Saints. You lose to the Ravens.
Yeah, but we're talking about
Barely beat the Bengals.
You just said, the Messiah of Vegas, like you're not even going to be concerned if he's not starting year 2. Like, so like to me, this is all.
Wait, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Fernando.
But I'm not even talking about Fernando. I'm talking about Caleb. Like I'm saying that I want to see.
What I'm saying is you had said, like, we don't care if Fernando doesn't start for 2 years.
Correct.
Right. So Caleb just finished year 2. So as far as I'm concerned, he's playing with house money. It's all free play.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not judging him off of what's happening year 1 or year 2 and making some distinction of like, well, he's got it or he doesn't got it.
Well, okay. So let me rephrase this, because not everybody in Raider land in Raider Nation is gonna agree with me on that assessment of him playing wait until year 2 to play. I'm not saying wait until year 2. If he's ready week 1 this year, then fine. He's ready week 1.
Sure.
Then you throw him out there and you see what we got and let's go. Let's roll and let it fall where it may. But what I'm saying from like the Caleb Williams perspective, now he's going into year 2 of this system, right? It's year two of this system. I think what the Bears need to really do let's just put it this way. The Bears don't even need to do anything to Caleb Williams. What the Bears need to do is fix some more on that defense. I think they need to get another guy, and I don't want to say trade for Max Crosby, but they need to get a dude like that on that defensive line.
Yeah, I think Montez is a dude. I think he's underrated, but they do need a running mate for him to truly be elite. And I would like to see them add a more accomplished receiver, but we also don't know the full scope of what Rumadonze is capable of. You're talking about a guy who's big, strong, physical, fast, but hasn't been the one. So, it's a different ball game when you're getting all of that. But I think that's the biggest responsibility for Caleb this year, beyond anything statistical, is getting him more incorporated as the one. I want to see Loveland more involved in the offense. I want him to be more productive. And then can he take the heat off of DeAndre Swift and their stable of backs? But
yeah, and I'll say something at the end about Caleb Williams. We'll come back to that at the end. But before we do that, let's get on to some of the other people in the division. So now, for me, the next one is the Green Bay Packers. So we can just talk about the big elephant in the room is still whether or not what's going on with Josh Jacobs. There's just been so many reports coming out. I heard one report. I don't even know if it's true. I don't know if it's internet BS that said something about how he came home. The girl was cheating on him and he tried to break it up or something to that effect. And she swung and hit him, and then he defended himself by doing it back. So if that's the case, you do what my daddy used to always tell me, and you walk in and you see that, just leave.
Right.
No, nobody's worth that. So, but anyway,
than she does.
What's that?
He's got a lot more to lose than she does.
Oh God, yeah. So, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for right now until I really hear all the details and we see what actually comes out of all this. Because right now, I will say this offseason in the NFL has been wild with domestic violence cases and all kinds of stuff going on. People breaking parole. It's like, what is going on? Like, dude, just lock these dudes in the team facilities.
Just be happy with all your money. Goodness gracious.
It's wild. And it's like, I just wake up every day, I go on X and I check and I'm like, okay, good. No Raider got in trouble yet. I'm like, geez, holy cow, man. But anyway, yeah, we'll let the news and all that crap handle all that business. But to me, Josh Jacobs is still a dog. If we're just talking pure football, still a dog. I like what they do out there. I've heard a lot. I was checking on X today, and I heard a lot about Lloyd. Was it Marshawn Lloyd, the running back, and about how good he's become too. Yeah. Saw him in some clips of camp video clips and stuff like that. Really liked him. Jordan Love, like, to me, this has got to be the year. We were just talking about Caleb Williams. Honestly, this has got to be it. Like, you got to take this division, you got to go deep in the playoffs, and you got to show you can win some damn games and be good. I mean, like, I understand they brought in like Sky Moore and stuff like that. And let me dive back into like how I normally do this in my style. Let's talk about the coaching first, and then I'll get into those people that got signed. But they brought in somebody who's half retarded as a NFL coach. Jeez. Luke Getsy, who used to be with us, is returning to Green Bay to serve as a quarterback coach and assistant head coach of the offense. Like, bro, you should have never just take the keys away, change the passcodes. Who let the guy back in the building? That's my take on that. Like, he's not good at all. Now, the one move that I thought was really, really good that I think will actually help propel them over the top, depending on how fast it all develops, is bringing Jonathan Gannon, the former head coach from the Cardinals, over. I think that is a great hire. And then they promoted some other guys and stuff like that. But I did want to share this, and I'm sure you might know this, but I just want to check his track record prior to being with the Cardinals. And you look at his stop with Philly, and he was the defensive coordinator with Philly. They were 9-8 the one year. They finished second in the NFC East. They ended up going to the playoffs, and they lost in the wild card round to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's the year that Tom won, right?
Yeah.
Tom won the whole Super Bowl that year, right? Yeah. And so let's see here. And then the next year, he's the defensive coordinator again. So year 2 of that whole entire system. And I know there's changes everywhere, but at least they got 2 years into the system. And they go 14-3, first in the NFC East. They were just balling. They were crushing teams, even in the playoffs. They were just murdering everybody. And then they lost to your Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So they lost by 3. But he was the defensive coordinator. But I will also add that Vic Fangio was a consultant on that team. And I want it to be known that what's really cool, if NFL fans don't know this, is that when you have consultants and you have assistant head coaches that are like that are like previously head coaches, and they come over, especially with winning traditions or a winning style, like proven, like Vic Fangio is like a god amongst teams out there in the NFL world. And I'm sure you're aware of all this. And like with the Raiders right now, I saw this interview from a few days ago, and they actually had Mike McCoy. You remember Mike McCoy? He used to coach like the Chargers. He's been with the Broncos. He's been all over the league. But, and he got on there and he just started talking about what a great coach the Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak is, and about his mindset, and about, it's really cool how full circle it became, because he was actually the coach above him at a different, I think it was in Denver. He was the offensive coordinator when his dad was coach or something like that. It was pretty cool how it comes full circle. Now he hires Mike McCoy back to come in. So when you see that Vic Fangio is, a consultant with the Eagles during that time frame with, Jonathan Gannon. So Jonathan Gannon's learning a lot from Vic Fangio, who to me is an absolute, monster. And if I'm correct, let me just double check this. Hang on one second. Everybody sit still for a second. We're all good. No, that's somebody else. I was thinking somebody else. Wait, no, is that Brian Johnson?
Okay.
Brian Johnson is now the senior offensive assistant with the Los Angeles Rams. He was also on that staff. Yeah, so I was right. Okay. So Brian Johnson was also the quarterbacks. He was the quarterbacks on that staff. So that was pretty cool too. So I just want to throw that out there because he's now with your boy McVay over at the Rams, which is pretty dope. So I think the Packers got a real good deal here going with their defensive coordinator now. Going to change up some stuff. They got, what is it, Micah Parsons from the Cowboys last year. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like some of their pickups. They got, so free agency, they got Javon Hargrave, the defensive tackle. That's going to be a monster inside. So one of their key additions was Javon Hargrave, the defensive tackle. I love that to help solidify the middle of that defensive line. They brought over Sky Moore, the wide receiver, like that. Gives them a little, dual threat offensive piece. You can also return kicks. Benjamin St. Juste, he came over there. I wrote our boy Noah, and I said, man, why didn't he sign with the Raiders? We need corners. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So no, that's all good. And then their key subtractions, though, were two big pieces, I thought. Rasheed Walker, he went over to Carolina Panthers, the offensive tackle. And Nate Hobbs, who used to play for the Raiders, which, he's basically a cap-saving guy. They released him. I always thought he was an absolutely dog at corner. As for draft picks, I've only heard of really one guy that they drafted. They didn't have a first round pick. I think that was the Micah Parsons deal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So I know Chris McClellan a little bit, defensive tackle from Missouri, but the big one was their 4th round pick that I knew from Penn State. I'm sure you do too. Dennis Sutton, the edge guy. So I really like him. They've got a couple other guys. They got Jackson, the corner from Alabama, but not a whole lot of people. They only had six draft picks total. So not a whole lot. But like I said, going back to Jordan Love, I mean, to me, this is all going to be around him. I'm not too familiar with the offensive line. If you could talk about that a little bit. I don't know how much of that, but to me, the Packers are going to win and lose with Jordan Love. And that's it, plain and simple. I mean, every team you could say that about, but it's time for him to show what he's got because he's been there for quite some time now.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the Packers is there's just a lot of question marks with the offense. Is Josh Jacobs going to play? Is he going to miss time? Because you're looking at, I know you said Marshawn Lloyd, who's solid, but him, Chris Brooks, Pierre Strong, like they don't have a capable next up. And then the receiver room is talented. Christian Watson, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Sky Moore, but health has really dogged that room, particularly Christian Watson. And offensive line wise, like Rasheed Walker is a loss. I mean, he's an incredibly talented tackle, but they had Zach Tom at right tackle. This allows Jordan Morgan out of Arizona, who was their 1st round pick 2 years ago, to step into that left tackle spots. They have Sean Ryan at center, and then Aaron Banks and Anthony Belton are their guards. So they're in a good spot with the O-line. I think Tucker Kraft is a top 5 tight end in the league. And then Luke Musgrave was actually picked in front of Tucker Kraft in the same draft. But is a solid, capable number 2. But I think for this team, can the receivers stay healthy? How much is Jacobs going to miss, if any? And can Love elevate his game? Because the conversation you were starting to have about Caleb, like that's the point we're at with Jordan Love. I understand Aaron Rodgers was there, but he's going into, I think, year 7 in the NFL. Like it's put up or shut up time. Like you've gotten paid, now go be that guy. And I think Gannon is a perfect fit for what they're trying to do. Lucas Van Ness has been a disappointment so far as a 1st round pick, but he's going to play the outside linebacker spot opposite Micah Parsons. So you're never getting double teamed. Like you better be able to produce. And then they got Zaire Franklin from the Colts, and they have Edgerrin Cooper. So I really like that linebacker room. It's a really good group. You mentioned St. Juste going there. They drafted Brandon Cisse. He was their 2nd round pick, who I really like. But I mean, Keyshawn Nixon is their guy at corner. He's their next Jair Alexander. I question the D-line somewhat. Carl Brooks, Warren Brinson. They have Devontae White, who's solid. They bring in Hargrave, who's good, but as a 3-4 nose, we'll see how he holds up. I think they missed the boat a little bit on upgrading more on the defensive lines. But at the end of the day, the offense will determine whether they're able to compete in this division. Because when you're going against Ben Johnson and Caleb, you're going against the receiver room in Minnesota, you're going against Goff and Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. Like, you're going to have to score points to win. Like, there's no defense in this division that's capable of shutting down these teams. So you better be able to score points. Can they? We'll see.
Yeah, and age is going to factor in too. I mean, Keyshawn Dixon, he was with the Raiders when we were the Oakland Raiders, and then with then he went to Green Bay after a few years with us. But last year was his actual first year where he was the full-time starter for 17 games, and he's about to be 29 here at the end of June. So it's like age too starts to creep in as well with these teams,
especially that position.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, that just, I don't know, that front is just going to have to get after it big time. But like we were talking about, like, to me, it all comes down to, in this division, it all comes down to the quarterbacks basically putting up or shutting up, one of the two. And that's it, really.
Well, he's getting paid, but he's the third best quarterback in this division. So he needs to step up.
And I mean, technically, this whole division just doesn't have a quarterback, so they're all trash. But I digress.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get on with these Lions next. All right, what you got for me in these Lions?
The Lions. Yeah, I mean, Lions do what Lions do. They're drafting guys who you don't want to meet in a dark alley. You're talking about Blake Miller in the first round, the tackle out of Clemson. Derek Moore is an edge. They somehow got Keith Abney, the corner out of Arizona State, in the 5th round. And then Skylar Gill-Howard out of Texas Tech in the 6th round as a D tackle. But this is a team that didn't have a lot of holes. I would like to see them, similar to Chicago, have someone opposite Aiden Hutchinson. Maybe Derek Moore is that guy. We'll see. But when you're talking about the secondary of Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph and Terrion Arnold, and that's pretty damn good, and O-line wise, you have Penei Sewell moving to left tackle with Blake Miller at right, and then Christian Mahogany. They signed Cade Mays to play center. Tate Rutledge, one of the best mullets in the NFL, playing right guard. And then you have Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, and Isaac Tesla. So, I mean, it's a pretty salty offense. Sam Laporta, another really good tight end, coincidentally backed up by Brock Wright, another Notre Dame tight end. But you have Jahmyr Gibbs, who's one of the most explosive running backs in the NFL. And they signed Isaac Pacheco from the Chiefs, who is another dynamic playmaker. And Jared Goff has gotten a lot of crap, but the guy can spin the ball. And when you have weapons like they do, they're going to put up points. And that defense has that Dan Campbell mentality. Like, they're coming to play. So, they signed a lot of guys that are more depth pieces, but like we talked about earlier, like, that's important because they have a lot of the frontline guys locked in, ready to go. So they're gonna push in this division. They're not just gonna roll over and hand it to the Bears.
Yeah, and I think, man, if you look at the Lions, they might be one of those teams that have young talent at every position on their roster at some point. Obviously Jared Goff's getting up there, but you look at wide receiver. I mean, you've got St. Brown, you've got Williams. They're young dudes that can ball. You got Penei Sewell.
Yeah. How about that? Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown were taken in the same draft.
Yeah.
It's
That's crazy. And then you got Blake Miller coming in. You just look at their, like, Laporta, a tight end. And don't forget, they got, I don't know if you mentioned it, they got Conklin from the Chargers
Right.
at tight end. So, that's a good depth piece there too, because we were talking about the tight ends. I mean, you still got Hutchinson is not that old, he's still young.
The thing that I love about the Lions is this is a roster that's homegrown.
Yeah.
Tesla picking 25, Jameson Williams in 22, St. Brown 21, Sewell 21,
Yeah.
Mahogany 24, Rutledge in 25, Miller obviously now in 26, Laporta 23, Gibbs 23, and then even defensively, Aiden Hutchinson 22, Tyleek Williams last year, Aleem McNeil 21, Malcolm Rodriguez 22, Jack Campbell 23, Terrion Arnold 24, Branch 23, Kirby Joseph 22. So like this whole roster, all of these starters were drafted by the Lions. And they were drafted in the last 6 years.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you look at all, like, they just have dogs everywhere. Like, Jack Campbell is one of my favorite linebackers in the league. Outside of Fred Warner, I mean, he's probably 2 or at least top 5. You got Arnold. I love Arnold. You got Branch. I love him too. I mean, they have a lot of dudes on this team that are just young, hungry, and they're like you said, homegrown. And then you bring in those depth pieces that are needed or fill in the gap pieces, dudes that can move around, shift around and stuff like that. Like, I just love it. I love what they did to the offensive line by moving Sewell over to that left spot and then picking up Blake Miller. So
and everyone talks about, like the Eagles and the Ravens, like, man, look how good they draft. But I mean, look at this, the 23 class for the Lions. They took Jack Campbell, they took Jahmyr Gibbs, they took Brian Branch, they took Sam Laporta. That was their first 4 picks. Like, that's as good as it gets. And everyone wants to talk about all these other organizations. No, the Lions know how to identify talent. They know how to develop talent. They know how to keep talent. And that's such an underrated skill set. Like, for all of these teams want to do it. But I remember when they took Jack Campbell and Jahmyr Gibbs, and it was like, what are you doing? Like, a running back and a linebacker, like, you guys are stupid. And now they're the catalyst for the defense and the offense for one of the best teams in the NFC. So they have a vision, they stick to it, and they nail it. And that's why you just can't count them out.
What's really weird about the Lions, every time, and I just had to do it again. It's so funny. Every time I go to look up, like, so what the Bears head coach is, offensive minded. What the Packers, the Vikings, they're all offensive guys. I always have to go back and remind myself that Dan Campbell was a tight end.
Yeah.
Because I always picture him in my mind as a defensive guy, just because of his mental mentality, like a linebacker or a defensive lineman.
He wasn't a flex out tight end.
No,
he's definitely that Sam Roush.
Yeah, he's definitely in there smashing somebody's head in.
Yeah.
So that's so funny. All
but
right,
I think that's the great thing about him is he's an offensive playing coach with a defensive minded mentality. And I think that's so rare to have someone who can relate to both sides of the ball so well. Because it's like, like, I played tight end, like, I played offense, but I kicked people's asses.
Yeah.
And I got in people's faces, and the defensive guys are like, all right, like, wrong side of the ball, but you're our kind of guy. And I think that's so cool. And that's why I think they've had the success they have, because they've kind of taken on that mentality on both sides of the ball of just running through people's faces.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, so one thing we didn't do that we normally do that I like to do is dive into their schedules a little bit, and I got to bring it back. I got to bring up my notes for the Vikings because I want to start with them. So going with the Vikings first, and then we'll go over our projections or our predictions. Their schedule, looking at their schedule, it's daunting going into the bye week. I mean, you're hosting the Packers, you're at the Bears, you're at the Bucks, you got the Dolphins, and then you're at the Saints, the Saints are on the up climb versus you, who we don't know what's going on. And then you got the bye, and then coming out of the bye, you've got the Colts, then you're at the Lions. Then you host the Bills, Packers. This is a weird stretch for them too, the Vikings, because they got 1, 2, 3, 4. They've got 5 straight home games, if I'm correct. Yeah, looking at it, they host the Bills, the Packers, the Niners, the Falcons, and the Panthers. which is a weird stretch of games. Now, I don't know if any of those, I didn't check, but I don't know if they have any international games. So one of those maybe, I couldn't remember. But then they're at the Patriots, and they got the Lions and Commanders at home, at the Jets, host the Bears, at the Giants, host the Ravens, and at the Broncos to end the season. My prediction for the Vikings is 5-12. I'm serious, like 5-12. Like, this is a daunting schedule. You're coming out, you got 2 division games that, you're going against the Packers and Bears. Then you got the Bucks. Then, you can get a win with the Dolphins and the Saints. Those are the 2 wins I got them doing. Then after the bye, I think you'll get the Colts. Later, you'll get the Falcons, because I don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be and how they'll look yet either. But we haven't gotten to that division yet. And then I think you'll get the Jets, because Gino is going to be in his tank mode for the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, man. I think you're not winning very many games. But like, we do the best case scenario, worst case scenario. And, my prediction is 5-12. My best case scenario, you're going to be 8-9. That's best case. That's 3 more games, 3 more wins. Worst case, you're 0-17. I mean, literally, like, you just fall apart completely, because your quarterback room and the PR, like you talked about, is just a sham. So that's my outlook on the Vikings. And then I'll just go ahead and jump into the Packers, and then you can do your last 2, and then we'll do our picks.
Yeah.
For the Packers, it's a little bit lighter, but your bye you kind of get lucky with your bye, because your bye is somewhat in the middle. You start to see your season off. You're at Vikings, like we talked about, and then you're at the Jets. So 2 away games. Then you got the Falcons at home, and then you're at the Bucks, and then you're hosting the Bears, hosting Cowboys, at Lions, Panthers, at Patriots. Got the Vikings at home. Then you got the bye right there, right before you go to the Rams, and then you're going to the Saints the next week. Then you host the Bills, host the Dolphins, at the Bears, finish the season hosting the Texans and Lions. So their schedule is a little bit weirder, where they kind of, their first 4 games, 3 of the first 4 games are away. So, and luckily 2 of them are against the Vikings and the Jets. So looking at them, I think my prediction for the Packers is going to be a 10-7 season. And best case be 12-5, and worst case, if Josh Jacobs doesn't play or anything like that, you're looking at 7-10. So you just flipping 3 games basically.
Yeah.
So that's my outlook on those ones. So what you got for yours?
So Lions first. 4 of their first 5 are the Saints, Jets, Panthers, and Cardinals. So I think they start 4-1. Then you get the Packers and Vikings at home. So they could be 6-1. At the Dolphins, 7-1. But then I think that's probably when the wheels fall off a little bit, because they play the Patriots in Germany, and then the next week they play the Bucks.
Well, who's coaching that one?
We shall see. Then you got the Bears. So you're talking 7-4. Falcons, Titans, 10-4. Vikings, 11-4. Giants, 12-4. And then you have the Bears and the Packers away to end the year. And I think they lose both of those. So, we're talking 12-5.
Where's that last game against what'd you say, they had the Packers
at home?
And
the Packers away to end the year.
Packers are the last game?
Yep.
Okay.
So I think, I'd said 12-4, and then there was 2 more. So I mathed wrong, but I'm going to say 12-5.
Okay.
Best case, 13, worst case, probably 10, but I think they just kind of are what they are.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say 12-5. As far as the Bears, they get their bye right in the middle of the year. Panthers, Vikings to open, and then they get the Eagles week 3, but it's at home. Jets, so 4-0 start at the Packers. And then we go to Atlanta, New England at home, at Seattle, Bucks at home. And then they get their bye, and then it's Saints, Lions, Jags, Dolphins, Bills, Packers, Lions, Vikings. So I think realistically, this is a 13-4 schedule. They lose at the Bills. They lose at Seattle. And then I think they probably split with the Lions and the Packers. But I just think when you're playing the NFC South, like, and the AFC East, like Patriots, we don't know what they are. So, that one is kind of a toss up, but it's a home game. You're beating the Saints, you're beating Panthers, you're beating the Bucks at home. You're playing the Jets, you're playing the Dolphins. Like, there's just a lot of really what I would call gimme games. And the way that it works out for them is like they play the Jets before going to Lambeau. They play the Falcons before playing New England. They play the Saints before the Lions. They play the Dolphins before the Bills. So I think you never want to look ahead, but I think it's one of those things where it's like, hey, like, we're going to take some of you and have you start prepping us.
Yeah.
Try to steal some games there.
Yeah. Well, I disagree wholeheartedly with you on all of this.
Don't care.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, I think the Madden curse is real, baby. And I think your buddy there ain't going to do it this year, bud. So here is my overall outcome on the division. Who's winning? Who's going to the playoffs? I've got one team going to the playoffs. And unlike what you said, because you said the wheels are going to fall off at that time, at a certain point in time, I think that offensive line is going to be so good by that time of the season. It's going to be rolling on all cylinders, and the Lions take the division this year. I think it's the Lions' turn, shuffle the board, kind of like the AFC West used to do this all the time, where we would shuffle the board, like Raiders would win one year, the Donkeys would win one year, Chargers would win, Kansas City. It's just some divisions are like that at times. And I think this is the time for that. I think the Packers will come in second place, will miss the playoffs by one game. They'll get bumped out by another NFC team in another division. The Bears will come in third because the wheels will fall off. Madden cover will get Caleb Williams some way, some shape or form. I'm hoping it's not through injury because I'm not into that kind of thing. I just hope he flat out tanks or just loses and becomes garbage like I think he is. And then the Vikings, I mean, what do you expect? I mean, you don't call your team the Vikings and wear purple and yellow. That's not a very Viking color team. I mean, that's like if we were to paint the Raiders pink and green or some weird color, neon green or something like the Seahawks colors. That's like weird. It's just weird to me. So with that being said, I think Lions are going to take the division because of your favorite position, and that's the offensive line. They're going to come to life. I think moving Sewell over there, getting that draft pick, the center, everybody, all those pieces are going to come into play, and they're going to roll. And I think Pacheco's going to add some dynamic as the backup, however they want to bring him in and use him. They've got some badass wide receivers. I think the defense is going to come up huge. I just like everything. I like the middle linebacker, Jack Campbell. So I think that's what's going to happen. That's my prediction.
That's fair.
So let's hear it.
Fair.
I'm never right. I'm the Clueless Sports Dad, man. Come on.
That's right.
I drink whiskey and talk shit.
The Vikings are finishing fourth in this division.
Mm-hmm.
I have the Packers third. I have the Lions second, and then the Bears first, with the Bears and the Lions both making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're both solid top to bottom, offensively, defensively, schematically, organizationally, where everything is aligned for them to be competitive in the NFC. Now, what that means, I don't know. Like I said, I think, they're both capable of being NFC championship teams. So we'll see. But I do think that they're both making the playoffs, with the Packers just missing out and the Vikings pushing for Arch Manning.
I will say this. This is my prediction for the NFC overall. I'm going to say I was going to wait till the end, but I'll end of when we're done with all the shows, but I'm going to say it now. I've got Rams Lions for the Super Bowl for the NFC. That's who I would love. That's who I think it's going to be. And that's who I would love to see it'd be. And I would actually love to see the Bears and the Lions make the playoffs over the Packers, because I don't like the Packers either. But I like enough players on the Bears, minus Caleb Williams, but I like enough players on the Bears to be like, okay, I would love to see them at least be, even if it's one and done, but I'd like to see them in it rather than other teams from the NFC. I think, how many, was it 2 wild cards?
Yeah, we get 6.
Yeah, 4 and then 2 wild cards. So,
yeah, I mean, the South is only getting 1, and they shouldn't even get that because the division winner will have 8 win.
You're going to have, I think if I had to say right now off the top, Rams, Seahawks, whatever one of those, that division, the NFC West, that division's getting 2. This division could get 2. If this division doesn't get 2, it's going to be
the East.
The East. It'll be the Eagles, and God, I don't want to say it. I hate the Cowboys. I mean, they'll choke either way, but I mean, Cowboy fans, they just love to let everybody know that we're America's team. Dude, you ain't been America's team since I was in diapers. What, 95?
Yeah, something like that.
No, I wasn't in diapers then, but
you probably were. You were kind of a late bloomer.
No, it was, dang, actually 95. That was, no. I was an 8th grader then.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to go to high school, baby. 96, I was in high school. That's right. So, yeah, so that's how I got it, man. I think the Lions, with the crazy part about it is we were talking about when we were going through the Lions and you started talking about the offensive line and really pointing that out to me, I actually changed it on my paper. I had the Bears, Packers, Lions, with the Bears and Packers making the playoffs. And then I was thinking about it. I'm like, wait a minute. I completely forgot about the revamp of that offensive line. And then I was looking at the roster and I'm like, dude, Pacheco, you add in some of these little key pieces that don't have to be the guy, but will come in and contribute and just add that extra element. Like,
yeah, Pacheco is going to keep some mileage off of Gibbs to keep him fresh for the playoff.
Yeah, and you can't forget like passing game, and I mean it's just everything. You take a screen to the house here and there, you check down, and and I think the defense is great too. I think they're going to be even better this year. So yeah. Well, that's it. That is it for the NFC North. Got anything else for us, Dan? Anything else going on with that?
Nope.
Awesome, man. Great show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Again, I'm Eric, the Clueless Sports Dad, with Coach Dan Meyer from Trench Mafia. Make sure you guys, again, subscribe, leave us a comment, letting us know what you guys think. Till next time, guys. Take it easy, Dan.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode of Clueless Sports Dad Podcast. Tune in for more episodes by following us and subscribing. And don't forget to hit that like button.